Good, well, welcome all. I can't tell you how much Angie was worrying about all of us late yesterday, early this morning. Wondering if we could do a Zoom meeting, and of course, Mel, I think, talked to the Chisago County attorney, and I conversed with the Washington County attorney, and neither one of them agreed on whether we could have a virtual meeting. So we decided to go ahead. Obviously, you all responded to Angie's email, and she was working hard on all of that stuff today. So appreciate you all being here, and hopefully we're gonna escape this nasty weather that they were talking about anyway. But we'll call our meeting together. Today is April 28th. It's 4 o'clock. And this is a meeting of the Lower St. Croix Watershed Partnership. We will begin with introductions. I'm Fran Mira, and I serve as a Washington County Commissioner and have been serving on the policy committee here. We'll go to my right.
I'm Tom Anderson with Isani County Soil and Water Conservation District Supervisor.
Dave Hilbert, Chisago County's SWCD.
Jackie Anderson, did you want to go?
I could. Angie Hong, I coordinate the East Metro Water Education Program and this policy committee.
Jackie Anderson, Comfort Lake Forest Lake Watershed District Board, President this year and next.
I'm Dave Millard from Lakeland City Council, Washington County.
I think we have a name tag for you. If somebody over there wants that. You can look.
I'm here, Angie.
Lance Peterson.
We'll get to you in a moment, Kristen.
At-large member, Chisago.
Okay.
Bethany Cox, Washington County Commissioner. Kate Lutheran, Anoka County Conservation District. Whatever that is.
Dan Dolberg, Chisago County Commissioner.
Mike Mergens, Chisago Lakes Improvement District, current chair.
Steve Holland, Pine County Commissioner. Doug Odegaard, Supervisor with the Pine SWCD.
Craig Bell, Chisago SWC staff.
Mike Eisenstein, Carnelian Marine St. Croix Watershed District staff.
Paul Swanson, Pine SWCD staff. Jay Riggs, Washington Conservation District staff.
Kate McDonald, NPCA.
And Angie, could you introduce the people on the screen or on?
Yep, I'll start with the policy committee members. Kristen, did you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Kristen Tingy, and I'm with the Carnelian Marines. I can never say that. St. Croix Watershed District. I'm a manager on the district.
And then Diane.
Diane Blake, Washington Conservation District Supervisor.
Excellent. Okay, then I will turn over to staff. Michelle.
Michelle Jordan, Board Conservationist with the Board of Water and Soil Resources.
Barbara.
Barbara Heitkamp, Shared Water Resources Educator for the Lower St. Croix Watershed Partnership.
Ellen.
Ellen Badger Hansen, Ag Outreach Specialist for the Lower St. Croix Watershed Partnership.
Kyle.
Kyle Axtell, Project Manager at the South Washington Watershed District.
Jessica.
Jessica Collin Pilarski, Washington County Public Health and Environment staff.
Susanna.
Hi, everyone. Susanna Wilson-Witkowski with Chisago County.
Laura.
Hi, Laura Jester with Keystone Waters.
And Emily.
Emily Hines, Comfort Lake Forest Lake Watershed District staff.
Excellent. Let's see if I share this. We should hopefully be able to see everybody and hopefully also the agenda. Look. Hello. There we go.
Thank you, Angie. So our first item is approval of our agenda. Are there any additions to the agenda today? Otherwise, a motion to approve would be ordered. Steve.
I'll second.
Got a motion and second to approve the agenda as published. Any discussion?
Could I just make note of the fact that it is Kristen Tunge's last meeting that she'll be participating in as a policy committee member. So I don't know when you want to fold that in there.
We'll talk about that at the end.
Okay, wonderful.
Sure.
Any other discussion on the agenda? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed? Thank you. Ayes have it. Motion carries and our agenda then is approved. You should have had an opportunity to review the minutes from January 27th of this earlier in this year. Are there any additions or corrections to those minutes? There a motion to approve?
I'll move.
Dan, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
We've got a motion and a second to approve the minutes of January 27th as published. Any discussion? All in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. The minutes of January 27th and are approved as published. Craig, we've got a financial report.
Mr. Chair, don't pay back on the table?
You bet. You can stand up in front if you like.
No, that's okay. In your packet, we do have the FY23 and FY25 financial reports. First of all, I do want to just recognize that we did complete a financial reconciliation audit for both the FY23 WBIF grant and the FY22 Lower St. Croix Clean Water Fund Soil Health Grant. Those are both run through our office. Both were wrapped up as a financial reconciliation as part of the process that Bowser requires. Both those things have been wrapped up for this grant, those two grants. The page, you can see we've encumbered 81% of the funds to date. That does not include the funds that this board will see in front of themselves today. We spent 57%. There's a bunch more. I do have a couple more invoices, one from the Pine SWC and one from the Washington Conservation District that will be finalizing. That's not included in that 57%. If this policy committee recommends to the fiscal agent the projects in front of them today, we will have 99% of these funds encumbered as of the May board meeting at the Chisago WCD. So there'll be a few remaining dollars left under a couple of activity items. We'll talk more about that coming up at the revision. Are there any questions on the FY23 financial report? FY25 financial report is included. To date, this one we are just a little shy of $2 million. This one to date we've uncovered 49% of the funds, and so far none of the funds have been spent. But we did just receive these funds in the first quarter of 2025. Are there any questions on either financial report?
Now we understand why the Chisago Soil and Water Conservation District might get the big bucks for doing all this work. Made Craig blush there. Okay, no questions. Appreciate the report. Always very thorough, Craig, and we appreciate that. So, and that does go into our next item, which is the work-based funding grant accrued interest. And you have a memo that was in your packet with a recommendation there. Hopefully you've had a chance to read that. I'm not going to put you on the spot, Craig, but if you've got any comments with respect to that and that recommendation, maybe you can share.
No, this really started with my auditors. We're going through some things with our year-end audit this last year. Brought it forward to the planning team, and the planning team had a good discussion in January. We brought it forward into the steering committee, both at the January and February's meetings. Initial meeting in January, they asked for some more information. Matt Downey was great and gracious enough to work with his county attorney to make sure the process we were going through was correct, going through that policy, the steering committee, and then the policy committee. Talked to Bowser. Michelle Jordan was part of that discussion. I believe she's online today. She went back and reviewed this with her other board conservationist, sent a memo to the group, kind of outlined that what most partners are doing with the funding with this. If you're not familiar, when you receive a grant from Bowser, you do get 50% up front. Once that 50% is spent, you've gone through a financial reconciliation, you get the second 40%, and then when the grant is done and all expenditures are done, you get the final 10%. So we've been some interest, and you can see accrued during time over the last 45 months, that amount. The steering committee had some good discussion. And at the end, we recommended keeping it with the fiscal agent moving forward for the grants.
Appreciate that. Appreciate the fact that, you know, the funds have been earning interest all this time. So that it has been invested. Craig, do you have any kind of well, first of all, how are they being managed, that they're bringing in interest, and do you know what the current rate is?
We're at about, I think we're at 3.5%. So we work with our local lending institution. We get about 6 to 8 months worth of that interest, and then they go to the lower amounts, and we make sure we deposit amount of money into the account. That's their minimum requirement. Sometimes it works out well that it's the amount equivalent to a deposit coming from the WBIF grant. But sometimes we'll move some Chisago CC funds in there just so you see that deposit and then we'll pull those funds back out. And that's what the auditor recommended that we do with that process.
So obviously very safe investment and.
Yeah, they're correct.
And likely won't be showing the same kind of returns that we've experienced here.
Correct.
Are we in discussion?
Go ahead.
Okay. Just making sure. So, Jamie from Anoka County Clerk was the lone dissenter, so he has been keeping me up to date. And he's like, it's the only thing on the agenda, so they might ask you questions, like I'll volunteer. So, not that I think you do anything other than the most best thing with it, obviously. Just the other side of the coin is that it's $18,000 that could incentivize keeping things in investments longer, not quite doling things out if you needed to, this isn't from Jamie, this is from MBA me. If you have an incentive to keep something in an investment longer, you might pursue longer terms with contractors, different things like that. And so having it not in the regular accounting stream and planned just makes it a different side category. In general, none of us on this team thought anything bad was going to happen, just more like bring it up to be aware of. And however the vote goes, the vote goes. So that was, nobody was having kind of fits about it. They just wanted to make sure that it was noted, because $18,000 isn't $800, which is sort of more typical for what these things end up yielding over time.
Jackie?
Yes, my board felt the same way, that this was not appropriate, not that you do anything wrong, as she said. But for us, it's more comfortable if that money stays in there, continues to earn interest. And whatever overage you experience, bring to the board to approve that. And now there's a nice clean record of what you might need in the next budget cycle. So that's our feeling too, is that not that you're doing great work, but we think it's better this other way.
Right, and I appreciate the solution, because Jamie didn't have an opinion, but it's leaving it to gain interest, just noted on the balance sheet.
I'd like to make a motion that we keep the interest in with the financial agent and have an annual review so that we're all aware of what interest was made, how much it is. Keep it on the up and up so that if it turns into a larger amount of money, that's larger than it is, we start looking like it's being manipulated to gain more, then we all know it.
So then you're moving the recommendation that was given to us, which is recommend to the fiscal agent that all the accrued interest from the watershed-based implementation funding grants remain with the fiscal agent to cover incidental costs and increase potential liabilities related to serving as the fiscal agent for all the Lower St. Croix related grant programs. This would apply to interest already accrued and any that may be in the future. And you also included there an annual report and review.
Correct.
In that. Is there a second?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Further discussion.
So further discussion, just that to me, the way I read that was that these interest funds are released to Chisago County to do with as they see fit, filling in gaps here and there, which is an excellent account to have. And the more conservative view, I think I'd also heard was, let's keep it in the investment account and kind of sequestered as you're still the fiscal agent, but it's not yours to do with as you wish. And so I'm not sure if I'm just reading it overly conservatively or not.
Well, the motion is to release.
Yes, the motion is to release it.
Yeah, and that's.
And what I heard, so you feel like it should be released or not released?
It should be released. My motion
Okay,
is what is
okay.
a recommended motion.
Mike, did you have your hand up? No. Other discussion? Well, I'll just weigh in. I think we've been very, very fortunate that Chisago Soil and Water has been willing to work with us as the fiscal agent. I think, certainly they're a much smaller organization than any of our counties, so this workload that they carry, in my opinion, is significant. And as you look at the potential payment here, it's not a lot. You know, it was broken down by month and it was under $500 a month to serve as a fiscal agent, which to me makes a lot of sense. I think we would be sorely pressed for any other of our agencies to step in and take over that job and do as good a job of accounting as what's being done. And I know that's
Question.
not in question.
So there's no other payment that is made
No,
as
there
fiscal agent? Okay, so there is other, because I know that Anoka County gets fiscal agent funds all over the place.
So Mel, what is that?
We have,
Steve,
we have a,
right?
no, that's fine. I've been called off the we, like all the other partners, have agreements through the water-based implementation funding for reimbursement funds. The steering committee, when they met, they talked about this, and there's a lot of things, sitting at this meeting that I dedicate time to that's not reimbursed. I don't turn in my time for this. I don't turn in my time for steering committee meetings or planning committee meetings when I'm sitting at the table or leading the discussions on those items. There's a lot of times I receive the phone call, like it or not, as the fiscal agent, but also looked upon, I think, as one of the leaders of the group and the ones that gets the phone calls. And I had 3 different ones today from partners that are 5-10 minutes of just time. They don't all get documented on my timesheet. I can't document those things. I'm sorry, I don't. I've got a full day of things I sit down the other day and I go through them. So if I need to become better at documenting those times, I guess I'll have to. I don't want to spend time every 5 minutes going into my timesheet update. So I try to focus a set amount of time when I get invoices quarterly or do statement of works or financial reconciliation. It's a block of time, and those are the time I work throughout the day that those things come up. So whatever the group elects, I guess what my request would be, whatever the group recommends, is that the money, because it's been in our past audits, that is left there for the SWC, because it would be an inconvenience for us to go back with our auditor to make corrections going back to 2021. That would be my recommendation. But again, it's up to this group. I've talked to my board about it. My board, I'm fairly certain. So we talked to Bowser. The fiscal agent has a contract with Bowser. Technically, it's the fiscal agent's decision. They can do this as a recommendation from this board to the fiscal agent. But my board has had discussions. I'm fairly confident that they will, I cannot speak for my board, but I'm fairly confident they would take the recommendation as policy committee and move forward.
Mr. Chairman, and I would just reiterate what Craig is saying. We know that it's just, as a board, we know that it takes a lot of extra time if you're busy doing something and all of a sudden you get cut off. It takes even a lot to just get back to what you're doing. So it's just that interruptions all the time. And also we know that the interest rates on these kind of accounts have been a lot better than maybe what they will be. So the monies that we're talking about today, could be half. I don't know. So it's not like a set fee or anything.
Okay.
Well, we get 4% on our interest bearing accounts. So, there's always places you can go to make that higher. But just again, for transparency's sake, we believe keeping it separated and very, it doesn't have to be to the penny, like you were saying about, those calls come in and you have to answer them. But I would think that you would want to increase your administrative rate in the budget for the next cycle then to reflect the cost of that overhead. We had a policy that we were going to vote every year. I wasn't at the January meeting, so maybe you did. Vote every year to see if we wanted to become an entity or stay as a partnership. And when we don't have all the costs associated with that overhead, then it's really not fair way for us to make a decision. But it comes down to that. Your discussion today is very common, is that you have other things that are your real job. And then you have this Lower St. Croix partnership, which is running very nicely. But at some point, you're not going to have enough time for both. And so, we need to have a really good handle on what it really takes to run this thing, especially as we get busier with all of the grant work and so on. But at some point, that money from Bowser is going to stop, and it's going to go directly to these regional watershed districts. And so we need to be prepared for that too.
Are you willing to keep doing it?
So far.
Okay, then I'm all for you. Doing a great job. Any other discussion on the motion? So I read the motion, but essentially it allows the grant or the interest earnings to go to the fiscal agent to cover the incidental costs and increase potential liabilities related to serving as the fiscal agent. They would move into the future, but with an annual review. We ready to vote?
Yeah.
All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Thank you, and we do appreciate the work that you're doing, and I think, you know, as you consider some of the liability issues, the auditing requirements and that type of thing, they are significant, so. Go ahead. We'll move into our activity reports. Barbara, you online?
There is.
I'm here. And Angie says she gave me control, so we'll see about that. Haha. So in your packet, I'm sorry that I cannot be there today. My childcare fell through this morning due to the impending weather, so I need to be home with the littles. But I can't take credit for this report. This is the painstaking, tedious work of Laura Jester from Keystone Waters, compiling our WBIF reports, as well as all of the reports from the partners of goals and projects that were achieved using non-WBIF funding. But it's just a really nice format report to have, just kind of lays things out very simply. And I'm just here to talk about a few of those highlights. And so in 2024, there is a rather large number when you're looking at the total number of funding spent in priority areas. That is largely due to a land acquisition fund that happened in Washington County. But we were able to spend a little over $700,000 WBIF and leverage an additional 3.2 million funds from other different entities. And so just again, I remember last year when we went to the Clean Water Council to argue for the continuation of this funding, that everybody was just really impressed by those leveraged funding numbers. And so that just continues to increase year over year, which is fantastic. And so in this past year, we were able to document a reduction of phosphorus in our priority water bodies to the tune of 1,907 pounds per year. Our 10-year phosphorus reduction goal for our entire Comprehensive Watershed Management Plan was 5,600 pounds per year. So hooray! We continue to beat it. We already beat it last year, but we've beat it again. I would say we get our gold star, right? We continue to get our gold star. With that, we still just need to remember the context. And so even though we're continuing to blow that phosphorus reduction number out of the water, we are looking at our TMDL of Lake St. Croix and the fact that in the state of Minnesota, we are responsible for upwards of, oh, and now it's not working. Go, there we are. We have a responsibility for this reduction of 34 metric tons because, of course, they have to mix units on us. So if you translate our 10-year, our outcome to date of phosphorus reduction of 10,959 pounds per year, that's equal to approximately 5 metric tons per year. But when you kind of bring that into the context of what we still have to go, so that 34 minus, or the 34.6 minus 5 metric tons, converting it back into pounds per year, we still have over 65,300 pounds that we could potentially go. So there's still plenty of work to be done. And I hope that we continue to just press down on that gas pedal when it comes to phosphorus reduction. One thing that I really liked about this report that Laura put together, though, is that we really wanted to start making sure that we were paying attention to some of the other goals that we had mentioned in our Comprehensive Watershed Management Plan. And so we have this lovely chart that she created for us, looking at acreage that we were hoping to achieve soil health best management practices. Obviously, we've already blown those out of the water as well, which is fantastic. looking at wetland restoration acres, shoreline restoration, stream restoration, and subsurface sewage treatment systems, SSTS replacements. And so obviously with the SSTS, we're blowing it out of the water already. We are, I think, for kind of where we are midpoint in our grant, I think we're well on track, if not exceeding in all of our other categories. And so definitely still looking at wetland restoration continues to be a growing interest and topic for a lot of people that are coming to our partners' doors in terms of being interested in projects. And then being able to kind of look through those leverage funds. Where's all the funding come from that are funding these projects that are leading to such great outcomes? One more table. Come on, you can turn, I believe. Come on. There we go. So I kind of put together this table last year just to kind of help put our different WBIF activities up on the board here. There are obviously additional activities that were listed in here. We talked a little about the land acquisition project. You have my shared educator outcomes. You are looking at aquatic invasive species work. But these are the ones where WBIF funds are going to, and it gives you kind of an estimate of kind of the relative effective cost of reduction of phosphorus. So in the ultimate competition, of course, the award continues to go to the non-structural ag urban section, just in terms of being able to give us the most bang for our buck in terms of phosphorus reduction. But overall, still really great outcomes. And I think that was pretty much all I had about the activities report. But aside from my educator outcomes from 2024, I also just wanted to provide a brief update of 2025. I can do that now, or Laura and I could field questions about the activities report.
Let's see if there's any questions, Barbara. Any questions on the report?
I need to hear more hooraying and hooray, look at us go. We're so awesome because we are. The partners out there are really doing amazing work.
I have one question. Do you come up with the projects yourself, or are they mostly suggested from either stakeholders or property? Where do the ideas for projects come from mostly?
So in our monthly steering committee meetings, a lot of times partners are aware of in their areas kind of projects that may or could be done. We are very much under the hook of making sure that any project that is approved is addressing an issue in a priority water body as defined in our plan. And so just as we have landowners that come through the door where we recognize, oh, this could be a really good fit. But there's also some project development ongoing as well. And in the last few years, we've seen those kind of prioritization or targeting analyses that are looking at, okay, we know that we have pollution hotspots. We need to identify where those hotspots are. So there is a little bit of project development. So I would say it kind of goes both ways.
Other questions? Go ahead, Barbara.
All right, so 2025 education, and Ellen, I'm totally going to put you on the spot here, and I told you didn't need to do anything for today. First off, so Ellen and I have been sending out a monthly newsletter through MailChimp. And so it's just kind of giving you a taste of kind of what is ongoing across her and I, our world, and the sort of activities that we are focusing on and what's happened in the last month. It's also a really nice way to be able to make sure that you guys have easy access to all the steering committee and planning committee updates. So if you are not getting that newsletter, please make sure that you let us know, because we want to make sure that people are getting it. We know MailChimp can be a bit, it can get sent to junk mail folders, and we want to make sure people are getting it. But Ellen is continuing to plug in. I think everybody has really appreciated and enjoyed her. And so she is starting to get out in the field with some of our partners, meeting some of those farmers, and getting on board with planning events this year. So I'll let her speak to a moment of how this year is the year of the bus tour.
Yes, it really does seem to be a theme this year. Everybody wants a bus tour. So we're going to be getting out in the watershed and really showcasing the great work that our farmers are doing and what we've been able to do together in partnership with them. So we're in the process of planning one in Pine, one in Chisago, and one in Washington at the moment. Yeah, and I don't know, Barbara, what else should we touch on?
Well, and I know that, so one thing that has intrigued Ellen quite a bit, and she's been facilitating a lot of networking with the farmer watersheds across the river in Wisconsin, is potentially looking at getting some farmers interested in doing demo plots. Being able to generate some local data, I think would really help continue the momentum of getting some of these conservation practices on the ground.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm working on identifying like farmers that might be interested in hosting those demo plots so that we can test out some of these practices that we're cost sharing on here and make sure that they get local data to see how it can work here. Also working on, again, inspired by our friends across the river, setting up farmer-led watershed groups across the lower St. Croix, recognizing that we're kind of a long, skinny watershed, and it might be a really big ask for our friends up in Pine to go all the way to southern Washington County and vice versa. So also looking at developing those farmer-led groups to have a space for people to get together and talk about using these practices and learn from each other, and also have a space where they can interface with me directly to be like, hey, Ellen, we want to bring in somebody to talk to about this, or like, we'd really like to put on an event that centers on this specific thing, and having that easy space for communication as well.
And in terms of the things I'm working on, so with Ellen having things well in hand in our ag and rural areas, I've been working a lot with shoreline related education. So we did our shoreline contractor workshop in February. I'm going to be hitting up several lake association meetings in the next month or two. If you have a lake association that needs a speaker, feel free. I have a new interactive shoreline game this year. Very exciting to be able to showcase that. I've been working with Angie at MREP and the University of Minnesota Extension on an HOA Homeowners Association leadership workshop as it pertains to stormwater management. So a lot of these HOAs have stormwater infrastructure associated with their neighborhoods that they are responsible for upkeeping and have to budget for. So I've been working in those workshops to be able to help promote or encourage additional practices that could help manage water quantity and quality. We're doing some adopted drain campaigns, really just trying to, I really want to get the numbers up in Chisago. There's so many unadopted drains. We need more. It'll be great. There's water testing clinics that MREP is helping host in Chisago and in Washington. At the Bay Town Hall in Washington County on August 21st. We have only one. We did this whole local leaders workshop series last year. We're just doing one boat ride this year out of Taylor's Falls. Mark your calendars. It will be July 30th from 5:30 to 8. So we're going to be putting together those promotional materials. We're excited to have Wild Rivers Conservancy working with us. We're going to be inviting our friends from Freshwater to come, talking about how to work with nonprofits and funding and resources potentially available for them. We're also going to do a conservation speed dating sort of activity. So it's going to be a really great time. So things are coming out about that. And then also in the last couple of months, we've been working to hire a contractor, a company to help us really start moving the needle forward on these ordinance-based goals that we have in the Lower St. Croix Comprehensive Watershed Management Plan. So looking at more communities being able to adopt stronger standards as it pertains to stormwater, whether it's through minimal impact design standards or just more restrictive practices, shoreland ordinances as well as wetland ordinances. And so we are in talks with a group right now And I'll have more updates on that at the next policy committee meeting. And as always, if you're looking forward to see what we're doing, please check out our events page. We try to keep it as updated as possible. Sometimes it falls down, but we try to make sure that it's updated. And that's it for me.
Any questions on the education outreach?
I just want to say that they're going to be at the Center Lakes Association Lakeshore meeting on June 5th. And the game's going to be played there. So if you're interested in what Angie and them have done, and Barbara, you're welcome to join the meeting.
Anything else? Thank you both.
Absolutely. Thank you.
We'll move into item 7 on your agenda, which is minor amendments to the Lower St. Croix Watershed Management Plan. Paul and Kyle, I believe, are going to lead us on this.
Yeah, I'm here.
Kyle,
Paul, do you want to start, Paul? You're in person there. I think you're the.
I'll give it a go. Hi, everyone. So over the last few months, the steering committee, there's been discussions with the steering committee about a few things that we as technical staff think need to be addressed in the plan. The part that I will be talking about mostly is just updating some of the language for the Woodland Stewardship Plan priority areas. Adding some additional language to expand that so we can better address the goals in the plan when it comes to forestry, and the reasoning behind why getting folks signed up for woodland stewardship plans, what opportunities are available to them, and how that relates to water quality benefits. The second part that I think Kyle's going to address is recognizing the St. Croix River and the direct drainage as priority water areas in the plan. That's something that's been talked about a long time with the steering committee and with, back and forth. It's probably been talked about here at the policy committee as well. But I'll let Kyle kind of address that. I'll talk about the woodland stewardship plan and forestry related part of that. So what we are proposing, this has been something that we started talking about forestry at the beginning of this year in 2025 at the steering level, just kind of introducing that and why that's important when it comes to protecting our water resources. Forest area does a lot of really great things for water quality. It's not a coincidence that the better water quality in the state is in areas where there's still large areas of forest lands and other natural areas. One of the best ways to get landowners engaged in their properties and their forested areas are woodland stewardship plans, which a woodland stewardship plan is a DNR certified plan written by a certified plan writer, an individual who has a forestry background. There is a process that you have to go through to become a certified plan writer. These plans qualify for folks that have 20 to 5,000 acres, with at least 10 of those acres having or plan to have trees in those areas. So if you're converting a field to back to forestry or something, it qualifies. These plans also provide an opportunity to folks to enroll in land protection programs. And that's really where we start seeing those water quality benefits, is getting these properties enrolled in a protection program that can count towards protected acres in a sub-watershed or watershed, and you start seeing water quality benefits improve with more protected acres. So looking at that, and our goal in the watershed is table 5.1 part C number 43. The original language was areas located along bluffland and adjacent to public owned forest land such as state parks and trails, etc. With the proposal of adding end parcels eligible for DNR woodland stewardship plans that drain to regionally significant rivers and streams for pollutant reductions in table 5.2, or regionally significant lakes for pollution reduction or protection in table 5.3. Essentially what that means is if a property is eligible for a woodland stewardship plan near one of these water body, so within like the sub-watershed that it drains to one of the lakes or streams that have been identified in the plan, they would be eligible for a woodland stewardship plan through this a cost share opportunity through this watershed. And I believe Craig is gonna, are you talking about that today, or is that? Yeah.
Yes.
We'll talk about kind of the money side. Craig will talk the money side of that in a little bit. But the language needs to be in place in order for folks to receive eligibility and benefit from this, so.
Questions for Paul?
No, but I wholeheartedly endorse what he's talking about. We've done it on our farm. The kids have done it. And I've seen the results. And we've had a couple of great presentations from foresters about the very best water quality comes from forested land. And so I think it's just a great thing.
Are there any comments, questions on that part? Kyle, are you taking us through the second issue?
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Marin. I'll take us through the second part of this. I'm going to pull it up locally here so I can follow along with myself even. For quite some time, the partnership, and particularly at the steering committee level, has been discussing the list of priority water bodies that are in the plan, and there's a notable really kind of viewed as an omission almost, that the St. Croix River itself is not listed. And by having that, the river itself not listed, what that effectively does, and not that this group or even at the policy committee level has followed it that closely, but there are a wide array of what we would call direct drainage areas to the river itself, that, you know, a lot of the ravines and bluffland areas throughout Washington County up into Chisago County, really, and you could all the way up to the top, that, you know, runoff gets to the river via either, you know, ravines. They may be perennial or intermittent streams. And one you may recall, you know, there's been a couple of them funded in our watershed district area at the southern end of the basin. The McQuaid Ravine project. Just last year we had one with Washington County at Bluffs Regional Park, and functionally then you know, another one coming up here. We're trying to get this corrected, and you know, there's been some argument that the plan as written might actually exclude all of those bluffland areas from being eligible for funding through this watershed plan and through the watershed-based implementation funding program. And you know, through multiple discussions, the consensus is that's not the intent of the plan. But if one wanted to try and make it a strict argument, you could potentially do so. And so what we're looking to do is functionally just add the lower St. Croix River as a regionally significant river in the lower St. Croix River watershed plan. And so that involves an amendment to table 5.2, where we're kind of there's a description for small streams draining to the St. Croix River, but only in a certain portion of the watershed. We're eliminating that, adding the St. Croix River, which with a caveat that it's all direct drainage areas to the lake or to the river, excluding any of the local landlocked basins. I think the group, you know, the consensus is that there's a lot of, as we know, there's a lot of landlocked areas throughout the moraine areas of the watershed, which, you know, work there. While it might be important locally, it's not maybe as important to the St. Croix River itself, or the focus of this watershed plan. So we've added, you know, some language there to a proposed language to be clear about that. The plan itself already has a definition. I think it's on page 59 of the plan of what is defined as a direct drainage area. And so we're basically, you know, leaning on that existing definition and just kind of, you know, clarifying what the intent is. The other major piece of that, I will say, so there's that table that's adjusted, and then there are 3 locations in table 5.1 where that idea of direct drainage areas to the St. Croix River are referenced for prioritization of different activities. And so we adjust that language as shown in item 4 on that draft plan amendment, to be clear about that and also, again, exclude those local landlocked basins. The other big piece of that is a modification to figure 5-2, which it should be included in your packets. And the original iteration of figure 5-2 really just showed the lines of those regionally significant streams. We have added a line to the map to delineate the St. Croix River down the eastern edge of the basin. And then the other thing in talking with Bowser, and again, Bowser staff was very helpful as we tried, worked for a few months to tweak this and get it refined to where it is today. We thought it would be helpful to actually add the sub-watershed boundaries, the catchment areas of all of these basins, local basins that drain to the river. So, Rock Creek, Rush Creek, Goose Creek, etc. And if you look at that at the northern end of the watershed as an example, you'll see those catchment areas are cut off at what would be the upstream, major water bodies like a lake or a major wetland complex, things like that, which again goes to that definition that already exists in the plan, that direct drainage areas are downstream of those major water bodies. And that's that direct drainage definition. And so you'll see we've added then these light blue shaded catchment areas all along the river, which covers, again, those bluffland and ravine areas that I discussed previously. Just again, adding that clarification, figuratively in the map of the plan, that those areas are important to the river, as we all should know and expect that they are. And again, there are certain activities that the plan calls out where work in these areas would be eligible. So we're just really doing this as a clarification. Be happy to answer any other questions about that. Just one example, I guess I'll throw out there. If you look at the very southern end of the map in our watershed area in South Washington, there's an area there, you can see it right below south of Trout Brook, where O'Connor's Creek drains into O'Connor's Lake. That area is excluded. O'Connor's Lake has no surface outlet to the St. Croix River. A lot of karst and things in that area, but it is a landlocked basin by definition. So, as an example, that's been excluded from the mapping. So that's really all I've got for you. Other than answer any questions, we're just trying to recognize our premier, eventual downstream resource as a priority.
Jackie.
Yeah, I just have a comment and a question. I think we talked about this a year or two ago, so I'm glad you're doing this. My question is, will you be doing work upstream before you actually get to the ones that are actually on the St. Croix? That's the last point.
I think that's.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Jackie. Yeah, I think, that's ultimately, decisions and work for, the steering committee and all of our partners to work on. And certainly there are priorities, different activities that are needed throughout the watershed, top to bottom. And I think that's, through the processes we have outlined to review proposals as they come in. I would hope that the group would weigh those accordingly and make decisions. So I don't think it changes the process that we're doing here.
Other questions for Kyle?
If I may, thanks, Mr. Chair. Kyle, my question is just that in table 5-2, we call out the lower St. Croix River specifically. That has its own definition of being south of Taylor's Falls. So are we being intentional in only wanting to touch that area, or should we take off lower and just have it be St. Croix River?
Okay, so I'm not, I guess, familiar that there's a definition there. All I know is that the basin goes all the way north into Pine County. We have mapped the entire stretch of the St. Croix River. If lower should or should not be there, I would leave that decision to others.
So I can just say it's a federal designation from 1968 that did the original St. Croix from the headwaters, the Namakagon River, all the way to Taylor's Falls. Then in 1972, there was an amendment that added the lower St. Croix and it had a different meaning because it was more recreational in I guess use than kind of that wild and scenic. And so I just want to make sure that if we mean lower, let's mean lower, but if we mean the whole thing, let's take off lower.
We mean the whole thing. So,
Okay.
we can just say St. Croix River. That is a very easy change to make before this ever goes out out for review.
Thank you.
Appreciate that point.
Good catch.
Yeah.
Other questions for Kyle or Paul? What we're, did you have more to add, Craig, to this discussion? Go ahead.
There's also, we have the upper St. Croix and the Kettle River. And if we call this the St. Croix River, then that includes the upper St. Croix. If we're talking the whole river, so what do we want to call it?
Well, I think we call it St.
St.
Croix.
Croix.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
But then that would include the upper St. Croix.
But not for this plan. Because we have once we get to the Snake River watershed, that's the Snake River watershed deal. And I know we all dump into the St. Croix, but I think for the purposes of this is the water that's dumping into the St. Croix is what we're concerned about. Because we have no jurisdiction, otherwise we'd have control over the Kettle River and Snake River and the headwaters.
Yeah, I'm just afraid if we just include just St. Croix River. Yeah, as it includes or pertains to this plan, it's fine, but if we just say St. Croix River, it could include the entire St. Croix River.
I think that clarification, if you say as pertains to this plan, boundaries it, so.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, if I may, the plan refers to figure 5.2 and we have our jurisdiction mapped out there. My hope would be pretty clear. And if somebody from outside the organization tried to weasel their way in and submit a project somewhere far, far to the north, I think we've got lots of ammunition to shut that down.
Somebody's already got a plan.
Any other questions, comments? So we have a recommendation on a proposed minor amendment to the Lower St. Croix Watershed Management Plan. There's a discussion about changing it to the St. Croix as opposed to Lower St. Croix. And I think good discussion about the jurisdictional boundaries here. So, what is the group's pleasure?
Mr. Chair, I'll make the motion to approve the amendment with the change in the language referring to the St. Croix versus the Lower St. Croix.
I'll second.
Does that include the woodland portion also?
Yes.
Yeah. Chairman, excuse me, can we ask Michelle Jordan from Bowser to step in and kind of give you guys an outline of what the next process is, because it's kind of a public hearing thing, if that's okay?
Yeah, I would appreciate that. Michelle, you're with us?
Yes, I'm here, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, and happy to talk. And if I misstate anything related to your specific JPA or bylaws and processes, please correct me. So if you can remember back, so for next steps in this process, if you remember back, there was a minor plan amendment that went through to add 2 water bodies in the lower watershed with the Valley Branch Watershed District. And so we'll be following a similar process here. This plan amendment, there are 3 different types of plan amendments that you can do of different sizes and scales. And the steering committee has been proposing this one to go through the minor plan amendment route versus a full plan amendment that would have to go through the full procedure. And so in the minor plan amendment route, what would happen is the policy committee would recommend to the local boards, the local governing bodies of your agencies to proceed with the minor plan amendment. And once and this is where you have to correct me, I believe it's 2/3 majority of the local boards acting on that, then that would signify the initiation of the process. From there, the plan amendment would be sent out to a fairly large list of interested entities in the review agencies. So some of those state reviewers and also local interested parties to comment. And they would have a 30-day comment period to give thoughts and opinions on any potential objections or changes and nuances on that amendment. And the policy committee would also hold a public hearing. And this is what happened last time, I believe, and someone can correct me, is that the policy committee held a public hearing at one of your policy committee meetings to hear public comment. So then once that 30-day public comment period is completed, and once the public hearing was completed in the comment period, then if there were any comments or questions that came up that we needed to address, Bowser would work together with the partners to address those comments, make any required changes as needed, and then the amendment could be adopted. And so at this point, it might be, if the committee is wanting to recommend moving forward the process, it might be good to have a discussion of when you would want to host a public hearing, potentially include that in the language of that is going to your local boards. As far as giving, and we need an entity who is willing to do the steps to move forward in that process. And Kyle with South Washington has been sort of ushering this amendment forward, and I believe they're willing to do the next steps of sort of coordinating the next steps of the process as well. Did I get anything, Kyle? Anything I said that I missed or that you want to clarify?
No, that sounds like I understand it, and yeah, South Washington is willing to shepherd this forward. Obviously, we'll be working with Paul as well to make sure the forestry side is taken care of. But our hope would be to move this along fairly quickly, and at least be able to have that public hearing at, I believe it'd be your July. Is that, if I have the date right? April, May, June, July policy committee meeting. I think we can meet that timeline.
Chair, do you need us to change our motion to?
I think we need some clarification, and I don't know, I'm not one that usually, I take back my motion, so maybe just an amendment, Clayton, to what I would suggest is, you said to approve it, but maybe to approve proceeding with the process of the proposed amendment.
So I'll amend my motion to recommend we proceed to the next step of the process to make a minor plan amendment.
Okay, we've got an amendment to the motion. Is there a second?
I agree.
All right. Thank you, Michelle, for that clarification. You kept us out of the ditch here, I think. And that's always appreciated. Any discussion on the amendment? So we've got an amendment to the motion, which recommends that we approve to proceed with the process of the proposed minor amendment. So including that language in there. Is there any further discussion? Go ahead.
I totally agree, but further discussion being, this will come to our boards from South Washington, or do we need to bring this to our boards specifically?
This, go ahead.
Yeah, there will be a memo released that should be made available to everyone to then get on your local board agendas.
Okay, thank you. If I'm the only one here.
So we've got an amendment to the motion that recommends we include the language proceed with the process of the proposed minor amendment. All in favor of that signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion carries. Now we'll go back to the main motion as amended, which is to recommend approval of the process of the proposed minor amendment. Begin that process. Any further discussion on the motion as amended?
No.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion carries. Thank you, Clayton, for getting that corrected.
If I may briefly too, Commissioner Marin, before I'm going to go right now. I appreciate everyone's time. I'm on PTO over in Michigan. So I'm not going to hang out for the rest of the meeting. I appreciate your support on the amendment. And I just want to say later on the agenda, you've got a project down at Carpenter Nature Center, down in Denmark Township. Just one I want to say the South Washington Watershed District is very excited about that project, and is a willing partner with the Conservation District. So we'll let Jay talk about that later, but just wanted to share our support for that before I go. Thank you.
Anything else on that issue? We'll move to the work-based implementation funding work plan revision, and, oh, I'm sorry, we're gonna move into the project funding request by the Chisago Lake Lutheran Church, Gully Stabilization benefiting South Center Lake.
I think it is
Craig, you're gonna
actually
lead us on that?
It is actually the work plan revision needs to happen first before the project funding requests. It's confusing because we have both a minor amendment request and a work plan revision request.
Okay.
And they're two separate things that the board has to vote on.
You're right, okay.
Can we take that action without having the actual approval of the plan?
Yes.
Craig, lead us through it.
So the first one was a plan amendment of our overall comprehensive watershed management plan. The second item is a work plan amendment to our FY23 watershed based implementation funding grant. So the first one is a plan amendment to the overall plan, where this is just a revision to our grant, one of our grants that we utilize to fund the plan. So I have in your packet what the steering committee recommended. For to come forward and talk about it. I apologize, mine printed out in black and white, so I think the language that's proposed is in red font. This started as part of the process as the plan SWC brought forward the discussion of the forest management plan discussion back at the January steering committee meeting. Angie, thank you for putting it up on the screen.
Yeah.
So we're looking at 3 items as part of this proposal. Steering committee started talking about this back in January, and ultimately made the motion and recommendation in March. So we're looking at adding into our targeting analysis activity for the FY23 budget. Making one minor change there. You can see that in the activity description, striking the word 2 and adding the word 3. So it allows us to add the forest management plan, the woodland stewardship plans as an eligible activity under the FY23 WBIF grant. And then it also, Angie, if you can scroll just a little bit, you can see the red font at the bottom. It identifies the areas in table 5.1 that are eligible for forest management plans. If there's any questions to that part, I will defer to Paul. Paul worked closely with Michelle Jordan on that. So if there's any questions about the item number 1 on the grant work plan revision, adding this as an eligible component of the target analysis activity.
Can I ask on the 2023, why are we putting it there?
The 2023 has a line item for target analysis. Our 2025 does not. So that would be a major work plan amendment versus a work plan revision, because we didn't put any funding in the target analysis activity in our 25 budget.
Can you go backwards like that?
We can, because this grant is still open.
Okay. And then I have another question about, is this a separate grant from the money that comes into the agricultural area and then money that comes into the metro?
No, this is the combined FY23 Lower St. Croix WBIF grant.
Okay.
The combined metro and entire watershed basin grant. Does that answer your question, Jack?
And it's 12 million, right? Total?
No, it's 1.44 million.
Okay.
I wish it was 12 million.
Well, I think I was looking at the total, you know, of all of the projects that have been listed, yeah.
Any other questions on item 1? Otherwise I can move into item 2, the budget revision. So then, as part of the discussion, our policy, the policy of the Lower St. Croix Watershed Partnership is budget revisions have to be approved by this group and ultimately the local boards prior to us being able to approve projects. So it's kind of a chicken or egg type of thing. So as the projects you're looking at coming up next, they depend on this work plan revision being approved. And so we have a budget revision. This will be our second budget revision on this grant. With this grant, we did receive a supplemental fund of $140 some thousand back in 2024. So Angie, if you scroll to the budget page, which is on the back, the next page, please.
Yeah.
So there's the budget. Column B is our current WBIF FY23 WBIF grant activity budget that the Steering committee was working on it, 1.44 million. Column C gets into some of the overages and underages that we have for our budget right now. That was proposed based on the funding that's coming up next on these items. So the steering committee worked through, and in column D, you can see what the proposed WBIF balance with this work plan budget revision would be, new items. It really then goes to column F, which shows we'd have $30,000 left for shared services educator, which is part of our NEMO MIDS program. So those funds have been earmarked for that project, and Barbara touched base on that a little bit during her report. We have $20,000 in activity 9 target analysis. That is what the steering committee felt would be available for the partners to apply for the forward stewardship plan writing. Once this is approved, hopefully by August, we'd have this approved and up and running where the partners could then apply for this money. And then there would be a small $1,200 and some left in admin after we reduce that down by about $3,500. So you can see in column C, the changes that the steering committee made for recommendations. So ultimately, the column B was our current budget, and column D would be our proposed budget, take part of this revision. And then the last component the steering committee discussed was the grant is set to expire. This FY23 grant is set to expire on December 31st, 2025. And so while we're in here doing this, we would just amend that grant expiration date to being 12/31/2026 for all the partners. This would also line up well for the partners that apply for the forest stewardship plan writing. Because we did not put this grant activity, this target analysis grant activity in the FY25 budget. When 2026 ends, we should be just in line to jump into the 2027 budget, which would allow them to be able to apply for some funding early in 2027 to not give them much of a gap there. For continued forest stewardship plan writing and work on that activity. Does that sound correct to you, Paul?
That sounds correct.
And the rest of the steering committee, that's here. So the ask, you'll see underneath the next steps. You can see the recommended policy committee action items. Is to recommend to add the forest management planning and woodland stewardship plans as eligible activity. To amend the budget as proposed on the back page, and then to extend the grant agreement for 1 calendar year. Which is recommended by all these recommended steering committee. The ask, just like the plan amendment earlier, this is a little bit different. This just has to go to our local boards. Once approved by 2/3 of the local boards, then it would come back to the fiscal agent. The fiscal agent would submit the grant work plan revision request to Bowser. And once that is taken care of through an e-link request, then we could have that approved and would be eligible to move forward.
So again, back to, was it Clayton's question about the plan amendment and how these two are tied?
They are tied because the forest stewardship management component of it. We can add this to the work plan revision in May or June, but partners would be eligible to apply for it until the plan amendment has been approved.
Okay.
So it's an eligible component of it's kind of confusing, I apologize, we have a work plan and a plan. But this work plan revision can be moved forward without, and then once that plan amendment's been approved, then the partners can apply for those funds.
So again, the recommendation we're receiving is that the motion would be to recommend to the partnership members approval of both the work plan revision and the budget amendment.
Correct, and the grant expiration date extension.
Correct.
And Andy would send out a policy or motion that we request for each of the partner boards.
Yeah, and trying to make it as clear as possible that your boards are taking 2 separate votes on the plan amendment and the work plan amendment.
Yeah, and there would be the timing of those 2 votes is important as well. One should take place prior to the other.
They are separate items technically.
Yeah.
So they are. So I mean, as long as they both are addressed within the next 60 days, if this policy committee moves forward with the recommendation, as long as they're addressed within the next 60 days, we have 2/3, then that'll move it forward. And so they are 2 different items. One being the overall comprehensive watershed management plan, and then one just being one of budget or the grant item.
Everybody clear on the request?
I think that it's as simple as number 8 on our agenda. So I'll make that motion.
Second.
We got a motion and a second to approve the work-based implementation funding work plan revision and budget amendment as a recommendation to our partners. Any discussion?
I will just say your staff have been very involved throughout this since January's meeting, so they'll be well prepared for this.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Now we'll move into project funding requests. Craig.
These, we brought a project forward in Center City in partnership with the Chisago Lakes Lake Improvement District, which will be one of our partners, along with the Chisago Lake Lutheran Church. If you've ever seen the movie Grumpy Old Men, this is the church where they get married at the end and drive down the dead end street to go to their honeymoon. So, little side note. So, it's a Gully stabilization project. I apologize to Casey Field, who was going to be here today to help present virtually, was unable to be here. She went home not feeling well today. So it's a large gully that drains down directly to South Center Lake. It's one we've identified for quite some time. We had some changeover in engineering, which took us a little bit longer. It took some time to find some good funding sources for it. It's a large project, close to 30 pounds per year phosphorus reduction, which just gets about a third of the goal for that grant item. Pretty straightforward project. Any questions? I'm happy to answer them.
This is money from 2023.
Correct.
Request.
Yes, correct, sir. And again, that's part of the work plan revision has to come first, but the steering committee did recommend this project.
Questions for Craig? It's your pleasure.
I'll make the motion as presented.
I'll second it.
Got a motion and second for the project funding request by Chisago Lakes Lutheran Church, the Gully stabilization that benefits South Center Lake. Now, mine it was 85,000. I saw, yeah, it is 85,000 on the sheet. Got a motion second discussion? Nice to work with our faith communities on water quality issues.
Can we somehow work it into a future movie?
There we go.
See.
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Paul, you're back before us now.
All right.
See, Jones Gully Restoration, right?
Yes,
All right.
so, we have been working on this area in the Lower St. Croix, region, the Rock Lake region, working with multiple landowners since about 2019. Doing several different things, cover crops, water sediment control basins, some exclusion fencing around Rock Lake, a whole series of different practices, and kind of all in the middle of this is this very large gully. And talking about fixing upstream issues first. We've been working on that, like I said, since 2019. And we have been working with this landowner on several other projects. And we all decided it was time to kind of pull the trigger to address this gully that has formed over the last, I'm not even sure how long, I can't remember. But it's a rather large gully that we have some grading and stabilization along it, as well as several rock checks going through the area before it runs underneath I-35 and then into Rock Creek, Rock Lake. It's kind of right south of where it runs into the lake and then back out into the creek. But both are identified priority water bodies in this watershed. So we are requesting $74,000 from the Lower St. Croix partnership. Similar to Craig, it's been reviewed and discussed at the steering level, and we're looking for you guys' approval.
Questions for Paul?
Mr. Chair, just looking at the numbers here, it seems like, it's an extremely effective at removing phosphorus at $87 a pound, you know, we're looking at $2,500 a pound sometimes in the metro area. So this
And
is,
it's a benefit of being in rural Minnesota, I think, is things don't cost quite as much, so.
and that's why we're here, right? I mean, that's why we're here today is that.
And yeah, and we're always thankful that the metro wants to always cooperate with us and put money up towards us because we got stuff that we can do.
Yeah, so, you know, I guess my comment is this just reaffirms why this organization exists, because we can get, you know, 10, 20 times the value on our dollar spent for the common goal of serving the river, and the environment. One quick question I have, that the last proposal we saw had that little worksheet that showed at the end, it showed, it rated it, and it got a 22 out of a 26 scoring.
We have that, didn't we? I can't remember when it's scored. I want to say it was like a 20 something. I don't have it with me, but I can just forward it to you.
I think I just want to say, I think that's a really useful tool for us because,
Yeah.
you know, these projects all got a lot of different
Yeah.
numbers and areas and sizes and impact, and to be able to have that kind of a score sheet is really helpful for any
And
project.
we would have had to have had it for it to be approved by the steering committee, so I must not have packaged it when we put this together, but I can send it out to the committee if they would like it for additional information.
Be nice to add it to that project detail matrix, you know.
To Clayton's point, I'm trying to remember Barbara's numbers that she had up on the screen, but was it $454 or something like that per pound? In the ag and urban BMP, and
That
this
is
one
correct.
comes in as you-
Yeah, no, that's correct. This year, so last year with the huge influx of the non-structural program, when all the farmers joined on, it was 141 per pound. But this year, the lowest was 454 per pound. So very cost effective.
To Clayton's point, coming in at 87.54 per pound, gonna improve those numbers even more.
Yeah.
And then just point out that, you know, this is a landowner match, or there's a landowner match coming into play here.
Yes.
Paul, do you want to describe how those numbers came about?
The match?
She had, you know, how that was calculated or how that match, how that was deemed an appropriate match?
Yeah, so generally Pine SWCD and these types of engineered practices, we like to try and do a cost share at 75%. The landowner, you know, can come up with those funds how they see fit, or if they have the money, you know, and the landowner was willing to provide that information, that match for this project, so.
I would just suggest that's a significant match in my world.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know how long the landowner has owned the property and how responsible they are for, you know, what happened there with respect to the gully. I'm guessing the gully's been there a long time.
It's been a long time. So this landowner, just a little quick history, this landowner has purchased the property, I want to say in 2020. And since then, we've worked on, will be our third project working with him. We've done some cover cropping and we've done a wetland restoration on this property as well. So again, kind of addressing some of the things in adjacent fields. And then neighboring properties we've worked on, you know, it's very ag centric area. So there's a lot of ag fields we've been putting water sediment control basins, some no-till practices, cover cropping, things like that. So, and this landowner has been, you know, very integral in making sure these things are taking place. So it's a very invested landowner in doing the right thing.
Good to hear.
That's good.
What is your pleasure? Any other questions?
I'll make the motion as presented. Jones Gully Restoration benefiting Rock Lake, 74,000 Pine SWD.
We get a second from.
I'll second it.
Pine County.
We'll take this. I don't know if I should, because I know the people, so I.
Well, okay.
Okay, I'll second. I don't.
I was like, I would Chris in a second too, but yeah, you can do it also, Doug.
Knowing the people is not a conflict of interest, but,
It gets perceived as one.
we got a motion and a second then to approve the, project funding request for the Jones Gully Restoration, project that benefits Rock Lake in the amount of 74,000, recognizing the cost share contribution there as well. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries.
Thank you.
Good project. We'll move into one that Jay Riggs is going to lead us on.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Included in your packet is a proposal submitted by the Washington Conservation District in partnership with the South Washington Watershed and Carpenter Nature Center to stabilize an eroding ravine adjacent to their property in the north side of the Nature Center. Requesting $70,000 to complete the project. Match will be provided by a combination of both South Washington Watershed District and Carpenter Nature Center. Total load reduction estimated is just under 15 pounds with a cost benefit analysis of $205.41. The ranking form is in there. It ranked 20 out of 26. And I'm available to answer any questions.
So Jay, the total request was 70,824.
Correct.
And the match is, do we, I don't see a dollar amount. I was just wondering what.
The match is going to be just the 10%, the 15% match. And we just didn't know exactly how much is going to be provided by South Washington versus Carpenter, but we do have the match provided.
Okay. Are there other questions?
What kind of work will it be entail?
It is a primarily a rate control structure at the top of the ravine and then a drop structure to convey the water to the bottom or close to the bottom. So it's a great stabilization apparently.
Oh, no.
Jay, the operating and maintenance costs that we identify, what is that primarily?
For that type of structure, it's going to be inspections and then cleaning out sediment from the pond, which the Nature Center is going to be doing. It's conveniently located close to their maintenance facility building.
And that's a lifetime expected cost, so we're not thinking that there's going to be significant maintenance costs there.
That one, no, it shouldn't be.
I'll second.
We had a motion. Steve, did you make that?
Yeah.
And second from Jackie. On approval of the grade stabilization request for $70,000. Any other questions or discussion? We ready to vote? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries.
Thank you all.
Angie and Barbara and Ellen, I think all of you are gonna lead us on item 12 here.
You know, and to be perfectly honest, I think that Barbara and Ellen might have already
Covered it?
They might have already done it. Yeah, we have the update on the RFP for ordinance outreach that we are going to be subcontracting with an external firm to help us with doing some of that outreach to local cities and counties on ordinance updates. Oh, the soil health promo packet, I guess that's one that Ellen might not have talked about, but that's something that's going to be coming up soon. And yeah, and just to mark the Wednesday, July 30th for a scenic boat ride on the Taylor's Falls boat. And assuming that the work plan revision is passed, then that would, the grant work plan revision is passed, then that also would mean that one of the steering committee approved projects, the internal load analysis for Goose Lake, will also be moving forward. And Mike Eisensee can happily talk about that if anybody wanted to know, but Goose Lake is a lake that's in Scandia that is in the Carnelian Marine St. Croix watershed.
Mike, do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Certainly, yeah, Goose Lake is currently impaired, for excessive nutrients, and it is one of the, it is one of the, 10 lakes that were listed as impaired in the Carnelian Marine St. Croix Watershed District as we entered into 2022. In 2024, we had 3 lakes delisted, and so, we're down to 7. Goose Lake, we've done a number of projects. We did a wetland restoration project that the Lower St. Croix had funded. And we also did a large iron enhanced sand filter prior to that. That was funded through a Clean Water Fund grant. And then we completed in the, about 2015, a Gully stabilization project to the lake. So the watershed load has been addressed. And so now we're working on internal load as part of the TMDL. And the funding that we're requesting is to do the evaluation of the effectiveness of that internal load control. Once that study is completed, our anticipation is we'll go for some applications for competitive clean water fund with local match in order to make that happen.
And this is just information today, but if there's any questions, we got the right guy here to answer them. Any questions on that or any of the other items? Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Other topics. Jackie mentioned the agreement that we had when we first formed that we would review on an annual basis our decision to have a collaborative entity or a partnership that we've been working under as opposed to a separate entity. And so I think whether you want to have some discussion about that today or include that on the next agenda. I wasn't here in January, but I think I just really do appreciate when we made that decision. And if you remember, those of you that were here, that was a somewhat controversial decision with a lot of discussion going both ways. And you know, I think it was recognized that the partnership type of a structure that we created could have its problems. And we saw this today with some of the recommendations now, and all of the various boards need to vote on that. But you know, I feel that the process has been very streamlined, and I really applaud all of you and your representation of your various boards and your ability to bring these items to your board and get them approved. That I think was the real concern back when we made that decision. And I think you know, there really hasn't been any delays on our operations and stuff because of it. Now, there might be some delays based on, you know, actions like we took today where it takes a little time to get this before your board. So we're maybe not acting as quickly. But from my perspective, I really appreciate the fact that these items are coming back for consideration to the full board. Which in the case of the Metro funding is providing significant funding to the group. And to me, it just helps reaffirm in their minds the good work that's happening by the policy committee. But I'm certainly open here for other discussion related to it. Clayton?
Yeah, just a question back when that, I remember, I don't know, it must have been 4 years ago now, and that was a big topic. Wasn't there some kind of a analysis or a paper or a report or something done on that that kind of gave like the pluses and minuses or something? But I think if we're going to revisit it, the place to start would be getting that in front of us and letting us all read it again and see. One thing I would just comment, I think what I've noticed is it is cumbersome to go back to each individual board, but at the same time, it's probably good to reinvigorate the relationship with those boards, you know, taking the issue back to my board, Browns Creek, we've got to talk about, hey, what is this what does this group do and where's our money going? And I mean, it's a chance to revisit the issue as well and remind our board and our staff what we're all about. So going back to our board may be a little slow, but I don't know that that's necessarily a bad thing. Anyway, so.
It was Jamie Sherburn who put together that analysis of what that would look like, the Jamie Sherburn from Anoka SWCD, what that would look like to be an independent entity or a collaborative entity. And what that meant in terms of the decision-making timeline and process.
It might be helpful to resurrect that report and put that on the
Did that
agenda for the
July.
next meeting. I think that would be good, Steve.
Brad, I'm on the other side of this issue than you are, but I think the really good thing that's happened is we've got a lot of darn good projects that have happened, and we haven't let that get in the way of doing good work. And that's a tribute to the staff and to this board to get over that and move forward. And I think that's the best thing we can do as public boards is to, if you're on the other side of an issue, you gotta get over it and move to the next thing. And we definitely set a great example for our board, at least for the other watersheds that we're in. And we've got great things planned for the other watersheds that feed into the upper St. Croix. So.
But I do think that it's good, just to reevaluate, and are we functioning well and why are we functioning? And, is there something different that we could be doing? But I think it is good that we're having the discussion. And, I don't care what you do, you should evaluate yourself and the work that you do every so often, right? And so I just appreciate, Jackie raising the issue because that was a commitment, that we made. And if we're not functioning very well, we need to identify that. I think, the reason we're functioning as well as we are is because all of the partners have had contributing staff that are doing the work here and making sure that the work gets done. And that's what I appreciate most. I know each of you have staff that are working on this. It's a dedication of effort and time. The cost associated with that is all being borne by the partners, right? And I think that's provided a better bang for our buck, if you will, in utilizing the money that we have for the work that we're doing.
We have to think also about the future, what's this whole thing that we're experimenting with in Minnesota going to be like 5 years from now, 10 years from now?
Right.
I mean, there is a plan. You're on that committee now, right? The Clean Water Council?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, we know what that end thing is supposed to be, is that all monies will filter through these bigger regional, and that puts a bigger burden on people like Mel, as you call him, Greg. But we have to think about that too. They have to think about that as well. And at some point, my belief is that it's going to have to be separate in order to move quickly and take advantage of every situation that comes about every year. So anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Yeah. Well, I know, Barbara and I did the presentation before the Clean Water Council last year. And that was a presentation that was very easy to do. And it was very gratifying to be able to present the work that this group has done because it's been very positive work. So, and I can tell you now, serving on the Clean Water Council, I think the council itself recognizes more fully how important this watershed-based implementation funding is. So
good.
Yeah.
So, and by the way, I came onto the Clean Water Council, which I thought was a good time. They were done with their recommendations for their budget, and then management budget at the state level found an error in how they were distributing the funds. And we had to figure out a way to pull out 31 million, I think it was 31 or a little bit more than 31 million out of the budget that we were recommending to the legislature, and we had to pull that all out in 1 year. Because that's the statutory requirements when errors are found, so. And I can tell you that the Clean Water Council was very committed in that process to continuing to fund watershed-based implementation funding, so I think that's good news for all of us. So we'll continue the discussion, maybe provide that additional information
just add that to the July
Clayton had
meeting
mentioned,
agenda.
and we can see where that goes. As was mentioned earlier, Kristen Tunge, who's served on the watershed in the Carnelian Marine St. Croix Watershed District for 15 years. She served as president, secretary, and for many years as treasurer of that group. And she has provided her notice of retirement to the Washington County Board. So we've got a number of applicants that we'll be considering here in May for reappointment. But Kristen, I want to thank you in particular for chairing this group back in January when I was out of the state. For some other business. But you know, you had an opportunity to chair a meeting and then resign from the group in a short period of time. But you know, you've provided some tremendous leadership within the watershed for many years. And then you know, you came on to this board, I don't know, was it in 2024 or
I think so. After Wade resigned from it.
that you came on, and we just appreciate you being part of the policy committee and your contributions here, and certainly want to wish you well in your future endeavors. But I know that conservation and water quality are always going to be on the front of your mind. Regardless of whether or not you're serving in an official capacity.
So, Commissioner, could I say a couple things?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, I just want to say I have really enjoyed being part of this group, and I've been incredibly impressed with the work that's been done in this collaborative way. And I also want to say, well, and I've learned a lot. I want to say a special thank you to Angie and Barbara for all their help behind the scenes orchestrating this.
Thanks, Kristen.
Appreciate you doing that. I think we need to say thank you to all of our staff more often than what we do, right?
Always, yeah.
Yeah. Well, Kristen, thank you much. We just so much appreciate your leadership and certainly the leadership within Washington County on the watershed board there. But we want to wish you well.
Thank you, Fran. Appreciate that. I'll still volunteer in this community in Scandia, so you might see me around.
Good. Appreciate that. Well, good. We've covered the items that I had, but are there any other business that we need to take care of today?
Can I just give one report?
Absolutely.
Last Saturday, Pine County Board dedicated 36,000 acres as a Veterans Memorial Forest, which we think is significant. 36,000
acres.
36,000 acres. That's a pretty big chunk of land. But we've managed that forest as tax delinquent land since the 30s. I'm not going to be on the board forever, and some of us there's always people sniping at that land. They think we should sell it because, you know, some people are. And anyway, I think it's a significant amount of land. It's most of it's between the Kettle River and the Snake River. And all of that watershed goes into the St. Croix. And so, and we all know that if you can preserve forest land, it's a benefit to clean water. And it's, you know, a benefit to our county to have that public land. And I think now that it's a veterans memorial forest, the veterans showed up in huge numbers, to receive that the other day. So I think that's a good step.
So as part of that then, Steve, does the title and ownership of the land change then?
No, just the name. Just the name and
so the county will still own it?
the county will still manage it. We'll manage it for timber harvest and recreation.
Well, kudos to the Pine County Board.
Totally.
That's neat, and maybe somehow we can incorporate that report into an annual report or something, because you know, Pine County should certainly be recognized for that effort. And I can see that it has deep meaning to you. Any other business?
Barbara is texting me that tornado warnings are starting to go off in various locations, so it might be a good time to adjourn the meeting.
Everybody get home safely.
Apparently sirens are going off in Iceni County, and there was some touchdowns in Waseca, which I know Waseca is quite a bit south of us, but
Getting
the
everybody
fun
out
is
of here
beginning to happen.
earlier
so
than we planned, so we will call the meeting adjourned.
Yeah,
Appreciate all of you coming here and wish you safe travels back home.
Hold on. Yeah.
New ones, as I keep saying.